We
Great.
can. I can.
Okay.
Perfect. You're nice, loud and clear.
Yes. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, so Chris said we've got this update put together for you. We're not going to cover everything that's in the code update, kind of just the stuff that portrays to mostly single-family dwellings in Part 9, but we are going to cover a little bit of Part 3 and 4. Yeah, so and Section 10 as well. And we're going to have a live in-person meeting as well on Wednesday. So if you didn't get enough today, feel free to come there. Chris will watch the chat. We also have Suzanne here, Suzanne McBriar from our office, and she's going to be watching the chat as well. And they'll put in some links to things as we're going through as well. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out. Don't be shy. We're here. We want this to be more interactive than anything. And yeah, we're hoping that we can get this information to you. And yeah, the change is coming on Friday. So yeah. So without further ado, the BC Building Code changes are coming into effect on March 8th, 2024. So that's Friday. So any permits that are that come in on or after March 8th, 2024, they are going to be subject to the new building code, the 2024 version. There are parts of the 2024 version that are going to be kind of not introduced, but they're going to be mandated in March next year. And so there's BC specific effective changes for March 2025, and that is for requiring adaptable dwelling units, both in regular new homes. So new homes are going to have a requirement to become adaptable. Then there'll be some structural and seismic changes that are going to be required. Chris, were you done your introduction? Sorry, I just dove in.
So I'll introduce Amanda. Amanda is our senior building official. She works out of the Nelson office. I don't know how many years of experience you have now in the building industry. A lot, Amanda. I'm the building manager. I operate out of the regional district office on Lakeside, but of course we also cover and provide service through our Nakusp and Crescent offices as well.
And we have Suzanne here. She's our development technician. She's in the chat. Feel free to reach out to her. And yeah, sorry, I started a little bit late. I hate being late and a little bit flustered right now, but we'll get through it. Hopefully these changes or going over these changes won't take more than 3 hours. I'm not planning on it. I think I booked a little bit more time than necessary, but it's better to have that opportunity to talk to all of you. And if you have questions, definitely reach out. If we can't answer your questions, we can for sure reach out to the province and get back to you. I'll send up a follow-up email to all of you. Yeah, so the overviews of the BC changes that are coming into effect on Friday are going to be radon mitigation. So there's some new requirements locally, as well as the whole province is required to meet radon roughen mitigation. We've got the energy efficiency increases and the greenhouse gas emissions that were implemented as a part of revision 5 of the 2018 BC Building Code. Those, if you've come to any of the other seminars that I've been doing, it's just a brief overview of that. But if you haven't, you're in the right spot because we'll touch on those. There's new provisions for encapsulated mass timber construction, so CLT construction. They're adopting cooling requirements to provide one living space that does not exceed 26 degrees Celsius in a dwelling unit. And there's retaining existing ventilation requirements for systems serving single-family dwelling units. We'll touch on that. And there's some plumbing code changes. The BC provincial government has adopted the 2020 provincial, or sorry, the 2020 National Plumbing Code. So yeah, those are some things that we'll touch on. Okay. So an overview of the BC building changes. That's what I was just talking about. Sorry, I forgot to flip the slide. Okay, so there's a new subsection in the BC building code, and that's subsection 1.2.3, and this is regarding personnel performing plumbing work. So this is come from the plumbing code, but now they've also included it in the building code. So a person performing the installation, alteration, renewal, or repair of a plumbing system shall possess a Canadian tradesperson qualification certification as a plumber, be an indentured apprentice, so supervised by a journey person who meets the criteria set out in the previous sentence, or be the registered owner and occupant or intended occupant of a single detached dwelling in which the plumbing work is going to occur. Division A is where you can find the defined terms for anything that's italicized in the building code is what we call a defined term. So the building code has its own dictionary sort of at the front in Division A under section 1.4. And there's many new terms that have been added into the 2024 code. Here's just displaying a few of those. So we now have a definition for owner, which is a person. An owner means a person, firm, or corporation controlling the property under consideration during that period of application of sentence 1111 of this code. There's also registered professional, so there is a defined term for that. Suzanne is putting some stuff in the chat for you as well. Ooh, I'm getting some feedback. Uh-oh. Someone must not be muted.
So maybe you can just check your mute status. The person who's unmuted right now doesn't have their name up, so it's difficult to call them. Amanda, are you able to take a look and just see?
It's me. I don't know how to mute it. Do you know how to mute on the phone?
Oh, you're good. Looks like that's muted. Oh, no, and now we can't hear you. You're gonna have to unmute that if you've called in.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. It looks like somebody else might not be muted. Hello? Okay, that's better. Sorry. Okay, so as I was mentioning, there's new defined terms in the building code. These are just a few examples of those defined terms. Go up. Division B Part 2, there's a new chart, a flow chart for climatic and seismic data. Whether you fall under Part 9 or Part 4, there's a flow chart to show you how to determine what seismic hazards to use and values to use in both Parts 4 and Part 9. And this is in the note section of the code. As I mentioned, there's some changes to section 9.4 and 923. These are those seismic data or seismic designs. So coming soon in March 2025, there'll be further education on this and bulletins, and we'll send them out as we get them. We should be getting them either mid to late this year. So March 10th, 2025, all areas pretty much in the province will have to have provisions for earthquake and wind measures. We right now are not in one of those seismic areas, but we will be coming March 2025. So there'll be some big changes for even Part 9 framing. These are definitions for brace wall panels and brace wall bands. There's an illustrated guide on the BC Housing website, and there's helpful stuff in there to kind of describe and outline these requirements that are in 923. So section 923 is where you would be looking. The designs on the screen here. So a brace wall panel is a portion or portions of a wall where exterior sheathing or interior finish is designed and installed to provide the required resistance to lateral loads due to earthquakes. Brace wall band is an imaginary continuous straight band extending vertically and horizontally through a building or part of a building in which brace wall panels are constructed. So you can see on the left-hand side of your screen here, we've got a floor plan at the top, and it shows the basement, and then in the middle is the main floor and the upper floor, and then here's a 3D below. There's a 3D section showing that brace wall band, which extends all the way up to the roof, and it's all of those floors. And the middle is just different ways to achieve those seismic requirements. So that's something that will be coming up in the 2025 update to the code. We know it's already coming. The province is working on getting some bulletins and education out there for the public as well as building officials, because it's going to affect our jobs as well. Okay. Also coming in 2025, like I said, are those adaptable dwelling units. So the section of the code, if you're going online and reviewing the PDF of the code right now, the 2024 code is available online, and Suzanne will be putting that as well in the chat. But if you go to section 9521, this is where you will see the requirements for compliance, basically backing for future grab bars. This is required in detached houses, duplex houses with or without secondary suites, triplexes, townhouses, row houses, and boarding houses, as well as Part 3 applicable as well. So something in that as well is that 100% adaptable dwelling units, and the abbreviation is ADUs, are required in large condominiums along the first floor. So the first floor units on all large condominium buildings are required to be the adaptable dwelling units. Oops. Doesn't want to stay there. There we go. Okay, so changes to stairs and guards. So these are requirements that are required as of Friday, March 8th. So there's some changes to stairs and guards, and the section for that would be 9.8. There's a new requirement for tactile walking service indicators. And on the bottom here, so if you go to section or sentence 33119, sentence 2 at the bottom there, you can see it did not apply to service spaces, bleachers addressed in subsection 332, stages, loading docks, industrial occupancies within dwelling units, and stairs and drop-off edges serving not more than 2 dwelling units. So any other type of building within Part 9 or Part 3 require these tactile attention indicators basically at the top. And you can see it in the stairs, the top and the bottom of the flights. Just let me know if there's any questions. Another change to stairs and guards are open risers. So open risers are now permitted in interior and exterior stairs that serve single-family dwelling units or a house with a secondary suite. There's in the bottom corner of the slide is those italicized define terms for what a dwelling unit is, what a service room is, what an industrial occupant is, and what storage garages are. There's also exemptions to this as well. So interior and exterior stairs serving single-family dwelling units in a house with or without a secondary suite, those are exempt. Fire escapes stairs, stairs that are principally used for maintenance, stairs that serve service rooms, and stairs that serve industrial occupancies other than storage garages. So everywhere else cannot have open tread stairs, but you are allowed in those single family dwelling units. Okay, so 9.8.8.5, openings in guards. So the code is now included like a size for that triangular space at in between the bottom of a guard and the surface of a stair tread. So that exception is 98852. Except for guards that serve industrial occupancies, the triangular openings formed by stair risers, stair treads, and the bottom element of a required guard shall be of a size that prevents the passage of a 150 millimeter diameter spear. So that's a 6 millimeter diameter spear. So now we actually have a size and something to go by for the area restriction of that space. Um, 9881, so required guards. So there is a change, a big change actually, to when a window needs to be protected by a guard. So in the 2018 code, the distance from the finished floor on the inside to the top of the sill or the bottom of the sill that required a guard was 450 millimeters. It is now 900 millimeters, as well as a mechanism that can only be released with the use of tools or special knowledge control the free swing of sliding operations. The operational part of a window cannot have any clear unobstructed opening not more than 100 millimeters. So that's 4 inches, measured either vertically or horizontally. And then there's the requirement for windows that don't need to be protected. The sill can't be more than, or has to be at least 900 millimeters above the finished floor, or less than 1800 millimeters, which is 6 feet above the floor or the ground on the other side of the window. So that description and that picture there on the side kind of explains that requirement. And then there's a note from the code section there for you. We're going to move to doors and a means of egress. So this was changed. So there was self-serve storage suites of not more than 28 square meters in gross area that are in warehousing buildings of not more than 1 story. This has changed from 20 meters squared in the 2018 code to 28 meters squared. So they're giving you a little bit of area leeway there. There's also door latching and locking and opening mechanisms. So sentence 9967, the door release hardware on doors and a means of egress shall be installed 900 to 1100 millimeters. So in the 2018 building code, it just had a maximum height. Now there's a maximum height as well as a minimum height to install the door latching or locking mechanisms on the door. Exit signs. So there's a new sentence that's been added. This is more for those occupancies that such as stores or doctor's offices, stuff like that. So anywhere there's a required exit sign, an additional exit sign displaying the word exit in tactile form that complies with subsection 383 shall be mounted on the approach side of exit doors. So this is a new requirement to have these exit signs with braille on them, so that it helps people that can't see. Okay. Section 910, so under the fire protection section, there's a renumbering to make space for some other sections that they've added in the code. Just want to mention that. So they've renumbered the separation of public corridors and added a new sentence for no fire separation required in a sprinklered for area between public corridor and space containing plumbing fixtures, as well as the space, provided that the space and the public corridor are separated from the remainder of the story by a fire separation, having not less than that required between the corridor and the remainder of the story. And the plumbing fixtures are not located within a dwelling unit or a suite. So if you have a janitor's closet, for example, with a sink in it. 9.10.14 regarding spatial separation, so the distances between buildings. There's a new sentence that's been added to exempt detached carports not serving more than one dwelling unit or a house with a secondary suite. So those types of structures can now fall under 9.10.15, which have a bit more leniency to where these structures can be placed in accordance to other buildings and the actual dwelling unit on the lot. 9.10.14.5, so the construction of exposed building face and walls above exposed building faces. Oh, I probably read that wrong. So they've added a new part to the sentence there. So it used to just need not to conform to the type of cladding. They've added as well, it doesn't need to conform to the type of construction. So that was an exemption for garages and accessory buildings that serve a single family dwelling unit. Okay, so this is another big update that's coming. We do have radon mitigation in our area. The province, the new code is requiring that radon mitigation happen or be built everywhere across the province. There's a new edition of a radon standard that's been referenced in several sections of the radon section, and we'll go over what those mean for the radon mitigation around here. There's changes including updates to materials and design, as well as a pressure test is required. They've removed the sentence that says if you're occupying the building for 4 hours, less than 4 hours within a 24-hour period, you don't have to do the radon mitigation or depressurization of the slab. They've removed that, and now any conditioned space in the subfloor shall be provided with rough-in subfloor depressurization system, so radon mitigation. There's now additional information that's referenced in this new guide or standard for both passive and active design. So whether or not you're passively doing your radon, or if you measure and you find that you have a high radon count and you need to put a fan, that's the active design. So the section that we're referencing for radon is Article 9.13.4.2. And what I have at the bottom here is the defined term for conditioned space. So conditioned space means any space within a building, any space within a building, the temperature of which is controlled to limit variation in response to the exterior ambient temperature by the provision, either directly or indirectly, of heating or cooling over substantial portions of the year. So basically, if you're heating or indirectly heating a space, it requires that radon mitigation. And there has been some questions about this even from building officials, and we're seeking further clarification from the province regarding that indirectly. Like, does that mean unheated detached garage or unheated attached garages? We're not sure. We're going to find out some more clarity on that, and we'll get back to everybody. Oop, I went down the wrong way. Okay. So 913 is that rough-in for depressurization of your floor system. This is just basically the code on the left here. Some of the stuff is very much the same as it was in 2018, but there are those sections or those sentences that reference specific areas of that CAN radon standard. And for instance, so if you go 913.431 and then you scroll down to E, so consists of pipe and fittings in accordance with section 713 of that radon standard. And as you can see on the right here, that section of the standard basically requires PVC pipes installed completely in or above grade shall comply with Schedule 40 specifications regarding wall thickness, inside and outside diameters, and pressure ratings. So that means that we now have to install Schedule 40 for radon above the slab. We can no longer see that white PVC. The reason behind that is that the wall thickness of that pipe doesn't meet the standard. Sorry, this was the section, or this was the page that I was just referring to. I skipped ahead. So now the continuous pipe system for passive ventilation. So this is what's required in standard construction in our area right now. So the roof penetration only insulated where in non-conditioned space. So you see it passing through the attic there. When it passes through the attic, it needs to be insulated, just pipe insulation, and then not permitted in exterior walls, and the labeling for the entire length at 1.8 meter intervals. So that's every 6 feet. I believe it was 4 feet in the previous code. So that's a change there. Pipe terminations, the reference in the code tells us to go to that standard again. So for passive systems above the roof, must be corrosion resistant, screened with mesh, opening size of the mesh of 10 millimeters to 12.5 millimeters, a minimum of 1 foot or 30 centimeters above the roof, a minimum of 2 feet above any windows, a minimum of 3 feet above air intakes, and a minimum of 10 feet from walls or windows. So that's if it comes out the side, you want it a minimum of 10 feet from any, oh wait, no, that's coming out of the roof. There are requirements for it coming out of a wall, but those haven't changed. Okay, so for those active systems, so if you find out or you know that you have high radon in your area and you need to go, or you built and then you found out that you've got a high radon count and you need to make it an active system, so you need to put in that fan. The active system rooftop, gable end, or sidewall venting is permissible near ground level. Moisture, ice accumulation on surface must be minimized. There's a 2 meter clearance to the mechanical air intake, a 2 meter clearance to openable windows, and it must be 2 meters above a paved sidewalk or driveway. Also new to the code coming is heating. The heating section of the code has now included heating and air conditioning. So due to the heat dome, the province has introduced cooling requirements for single-family dwellings, as well as Part 3 as well. So they've added the cooling systems. They've renumbered separation of public court. Oh, sorry, that's actually a typo there. So except where determination according to Article 9335 or good engineering practices. So 9335, that means we'll be asking for those F280 reports. We started asking for those to verify that your mechanical system has been installed correctly and balanced and designed. So now with those F280 reports and your heating mechanical contractor can do that for you, as well as your energy advisor. And we'll be asking for that as well to verify that you do have this one refuge room, which I will get to in the next sentence. Or good engineering practice, you can show it to be unnecessary. So maybe you have a portion of your build is below grade, but we still need that F280 report to prove that even during the hottest months of the year, you will be able to maintain that design temperature. Yeah, so that design temperature is 933.3.1. So there's now an indoor design temperature for cooling. So at the outside summer design temperature, so we would reference that in Appendix C of the building code. Every town or small town, if it's not listed in there, the regional district, we have it in our bylaw as well, requires cooling facilities that shall be capable of maintaining an indoor air temperature of not more than 26 degrees in at least one living space in each dwelling unit. So this has to be a living space, so it has to be a bedroom, it has to be a common room. It can't just be a closet. You can't just say, oh, my closet is 26 degrees. I'm gonna refuge in there when it's really hot. You can either do this passively, as I described. You might have portions of your building underground, which it will show in your F280 calculation, or you can do this mechanically. We're going to get to the section for the new step codes and new requirements for electrification. So a lot of people are already installing heat pumps. Heat pumps are also air conditioners. There's just a switch that they can do, or you can get them combined with both, but they're manufactured by the same company. A heat pump is a air conditioner. On that, we're going to move to the energy step code and the zero carbon step code. So the sections that we're going to be referring to are section 936 and 937, and those are for Part 9 applicable houses. Mostly, it does include some multi-family residents with less than 20% common areas, but any other type of occupancy that falls in Part 9 would, for other parts of Part 9, would fall under Section 10. So Section 10.2 are the energy requirements, and Section 10.3 is the new zero carbon step code or greenhouse gas emission target section. The differences between the two, the energy step code and the zero carbon step code, are the energy step code seeks to address energy consumption via increased energy efficiency. So an example of that would be increasing your air tightness, which we're already on, we're comfortable with. The new zero carbon step code, so sections 937 and 10.3, seeks to address energy source emissions via encouraging mechanical systems that use energy sources with a lower emission factor. So we're basically looking at the type of fuel for your operational heating, cooling, and cooking. Oops, I'm changing the wrong screen. So under the energy efficiency changes, the major Part 9 energy efficiency changes include the 936 energy efficiency minimum requirements of Step 3 performance for Part 9, 936 to 936.4 has been introduced. It is a prescriptive pathway. It is more expensive. Essentially, it alleviates the requirement for doing any modeling or having an energy advisor. This was made by the province for those areas that are unreachable by an energy advisor, mainly the north. It has to be adopted by the local authority having jurisdiction, so your local government. I do not know of any that have adopted it in even the West Kootenay area, west or east, and it has to be adopted under a bylaw. The pathway is pretty much more, a lot, it's about at least 5% more than going with the measured approach or the performance pathway. So that is why we haven't adopted it. So 936.6 is the energy step code, so that's what we're going to be referring to. There's a section 936.5, which modeling can also be done, and it's based off of reference house target, but it also requires you to have your energy advisor involved. Farrell is asking, are all existing buildings, oh, I missed it. Let me pull up the chat. Are all existing buildings excluded from step code net zero energy requirements? All existing buildings, there's not a code for existing or retrofit buildings right now. And these, what we're talking about are just new buildings. There's going to be something coming up that I'll touch on called the high efficiency energy standard, and it's going to affect retrofits largely. And we, the regional district, sent a letter to the province with our response and how we thought that our area would handle this and be prepared for it. So I'll get to that. But what I'm talking about right now, Farrell, is only applicable to new buildings. Okay. So the bottom part of this slide represents the types of occupancies that fall in Part 9. As you can see, even though they fall in Part 9 for other requirements regarding energy step code or efficiency, as well as the greenhouse gas emission targets, if they're larger apartments, if they're D-occupancies, so offices are an example of that, or they're E-occupancies, mercantile stores, retail goods, small stuff like that, that's still, you would have to reference Part 10 for the energy step code, as well as the zero carbon step code. We have those industrial types, the F2 and F3, and those refer to Part 10 or the National Energy Code for building. There's also the passive house pathway as well, which is above and beyond the energy step code, but that's also a pathway that can be chosen. The applicable buildings for Section 936.6 and Section 937 for energy step code, as well as the zero carbon, are single-family dwellings with or without secondary suites, row houses, buildings containing only dwelling units with a common spaces equal to or less than 20% of the building's total floor area, and duplexes. So now we're going to move into the Part 10 section for energy efficiency. Like I mentioned, depending on the type of occupancy of the building or use of the building, it will have to meet minimum and maximum step codes. So you can see occupancies there. There's a minimum step of step 2, which has been increased from step 1 across the province. The maximum is step 4. And then we can see here hospitals have only a step 2, or they can meet part 8 of the national code, the National Energy Code for buildings. Just going to check the chat again. Okay, Chris is just putting a link in there for energy advisors in the area. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the zero carbon step code. So this is that 937 and 10.3. So the easiest way to explain the zero carbon step code is by speaking to the prescriptive pathway in part 9. So part 9, even though we just went through that with the energy efficiency, it has to be adopted by your local government. The prescriptive pathway in part 9 for the zero carbon step code is the most restrictive. So that's always going to be open for you to choose, again, because it's the most restrictive. So the easiest way to explain it, though, is that the measured values, oh, I'm getting some feedback. The measured values in the charts that I'll show on the next slide, that's all measured already with your model, your energy modeling that you're getting from your energy advisor. So the steps, like the step code, go from EL1, so emission level 1, to emission level 4. Emission level 4 is the highest. So emission level 1 represents measure only. So that just requires you to supply us, the local authority, with your measured GHG emission factor. So the EL2, so emission level 2, is moderate carbon performance. So here you can use fossil fuel water heating as well as cooking, but your space heating system must be decarbonized. So I've got a picture there of an electric heat pump. Emission level EL3 is your fossil fuel cooking is still allowed, but your space and your water heating systems must be decarbonized. And then you've got the top level there, which is emission level 4. And here you're not allowed to use any fossil fuels for your space and your water heating, as well as your cooking. Something to mention about that measured or the performance pathway. So this is just describing that part 9 prescriptive. The measured performance does not include cooking, so it doesn't factor in cooking. If you go passive house, it does factor in cooking, but just this prescriptive factors in cooking. Something else to mention is that your wood stoves, so your backup or your redundant heating, so you've got wood stoves or gas fireplaces, those are not, those are exempt from the zero carbon step code. As we know, we're rural, our power goes out quite often, and we need to have some way to keep warm. So you can still have your wood stoves, which are pretty popular here. So this does not affect that. The next slide here. So these are the code tables. So the top table here is from 937. So that's for those part 9 applicable houses, essentially residential occupancies. We've got the greenhouse gas emission level, so the emission level 1 to 4 over on the left-hand side. We've got your performance metrics, which are both the columns to the left there. We've got the prescriptive requirements only in the part 9 table, as I mentioned, and that's what I just described on the previous slide. If you're doing the the measured or performance based, so this is measured by your energy advisor, you would start in that first column to the right of the emission level. So if you were meeting, say, EL3 or emission level 3, you would go for 440 greenhouse gas emissions, and that's expressed in kilograms of CO2 equivalent, so any type of carbon producing gas per year. And if you don't meet that 440, you can move to the center column, and the center column has essentially two metrics that you have to meet: the greenhouse gas intensity, as well as a greenhouse gas emission level as well. And this middle column is easier achieved by larger homes, or medium and larger homes. The bottom there, that is the for those other types of occupancies other than residential and the larger residential Part 3 buildings. We have offices and those business and mercantile occupancies. You can see that each emission level only has that greenhouse gas intensity expressed in kilograms of CO2 equivalent meters square per year. That's based on your area. And depending on your occupancy, there's different metrics that you have to meet for each emission level. So as it says there, this data is already being accounted for, it's already being measured, it's being included in your documentation that you receive from both your energy modelers for the Part 10, as well as your energy advisors for those Part 9 houses. What the province has done with that change is updated these compliance checklists or the compliance forms. We've got a new title page on the Part 9. The Part 9 is displayed on the right-hand side. You can see there's a section for the energy step code. So it says the achieved level or the proposed level if it's a pre-construction. And then we've got the zero carbon step code on the left-hand side. The page behind there looks the same. This is what, this is like the contractor instruction page. This is what building official will be looking at when they're doing plan checks, as well as what we bring to site to identify and verify that what's been constructed on site matches the model. So if something doesn't match this form, we will call it up in a failed report, essentially. So what we're trying to do is making sure that we hand this out, back out when you come and get your permit package, so we know, so you know, and we know that this is like your Bible. This is your recipe for your house. On the right-hand side there is the Part 10 and the Part 10.2, which is energy, and 10.3, the zero carbon step code compliance checklist. This is usually included by energy modelers or professionals in the reports for the larger buildings. Usually the larger buildings have multiple types of occupancies, so it's a weighted or an averaged number. So it's a lot more convoluted, the Part 3 or the Part 9 complex buildings, depending on the types of occupancies. There are great, if you want to learn more about these compliance forms, there's really great seminars on the Energy Step Code website. So if you go to theenergystepcode.ca, you can go into compliance tools, and there's some really good pre-recorded sessions with Mark Bernhardt, who was instrumental in creating these and revising these reports. Oops, I went too far. So this slide at the top here in the green has what the provincial minimum requirements are. As we've noted, the zero carbon step code has to be adopted in or opt-in by your local government. The Regional District of Central Kootenay has not adopted any part of the zero carbon step code. So if you want to be ambitious, you can do that. I know the city of Nelson, because I just came from there, I was working there. They are implementing emission level 3 for their housing. So that's something to keep in mind. But right now in the green is the requirements as the code stands. So as of May 1st, 2023 to current, There's a minimum of step 3 for Part 9 complex buildings as well as Part 3 buildings. So those buildings that are required to comply with 10.2. Step 3 minimum requirement for houses and those residential buildings applicable to Part 9. I did want to mention here, so there's some upcoming provincial targets that are coming soon. So with the energy step code, you can see that 2027 is the next big move for the rise in energy step code. A lot of what we're getting and receiving on our compliance forms is at least 4s and 3s right now, so I'm not too concerned about that. Regarding the zero carbon step code, so to reference that would be the BC roadmap to Clean BC roadmap to 2030, and that's the goal for the province wants to be at zero by 2030. So as you can see here, they've got EL, they've planned that emission level 2 would be implemented sometime this year. From my discussion and questions asked to the province lately, it sounds like they're more likely to require that emission level 1, so only recording it, which you're already doing on those compliance reports anyway. So it's just something to think about and look forward to. This is something that's coming, and as Farrell was asking, things that apply to retrofits in existing houses. So, and as a part of Clean BC, there's a high efficiency equipment standard. Right now, there was consultation from December 2023 until about 2 weeks ago. So this information is available online, but the feedback opportunity has closed. As I mentioned, we, as the regional district, did send some feedback on this. But essentially what this standard is saying is after 2023, all new space heating and water heating equipment sold and installed in BC is required to be at least 100% efficient. And for all you gas fitters out there, that means that things are going to start getting electrified, because anything that for a gas furnace, for example, the highest efficiency it can meet really is 95%. Same thing with the on-demand gas boiler. So it's definitely going to affect things like retrofits, and as well as people installing gas appliances right now. It might be something to think about, either going electric or running those wires so that when that equipment comes due for replacement or major repairs, you don't need to do a big retrofit to fit in something that is more efficient. Something to mention here is that those dual systems, say a electric heat pump with a gas furnace backup, so those dual systems, that is still considered above 100%. But like I said, those components and actually getting the equipment after 2030 might become pretty difficult. So it's something that I wanted to make sure I mentioned in this presentation. Moving on to part 3. So I'll go more quickly through this. So part 3 of the BC Building Code changes, the few highlights from there's a lot more, but encapsulated mass timber is now allowed up to 12 stories. There's fire stopping, F rating, and T ratings. I know there are some architects and engineers on this call, so don't worry, I actually have some definitions down below as well. So visible fire alarm signal devices in corridors and washrooms and hotels and motels, exit signs, floor numbers, emergency lighting, notifications with tactile info, similar to the Part 9 ones that we discussed above, accessibility changes, all buildings with limited exceptions, and there's a new section for self-storage buildings in Part 3 that has some really different exemptions. So as I mentioned, encapsulated mass timber, so that CLT construction is now permitted to go up to 12 stories in height. Division B, Part 3, so there's some new exceptions for continuity of fire separations. So these are some new sentences. I won't get into them, but again, those FT ratings, for definition, F rating equals the amount of time the penetration through the fire separation must remain intact and prevent the passage of flame. And then the T rating is the temperature prevented on the non-flame side of the assembly, rating of 25 degrees Fahrenheit of temperature rise. So it's pretty technical, but there are some new requirements regarding fire separations and continuity of fire separations. Accessibility changes. So this is something that's going to end up affecting new and any buildings that are not new, but going through renovations, and I'll get to that. And it's only Part 3 applicable buildings, so not those Part 9 buildings. Mandatory backing for grab bars in all residential buildings. Something else, these requirements are not coming into effect until March 2025 as well. And there's going to be a bulletin coming out later this year from the province going over all of these requirements. So don't worry if you don't get this today, it's coming. So all entrances are required to be accessible, including door operators. There's requirements for accessible and limited mobility washrooms, stalls, and urinals. There's new requirements for universal washrooms, including design changes, including adult accessible change tables in certain occupancies. I'll go over that, as well as lateral transfer space for those accessible tables, adaptable design guidelines, accessible water bottle filling stations. So universal washroom design. So as I mentioned, there's some changes there. So there's a requirement for accessible change space in a universal washroom or the main entrance story of a building of an occupancy A. So those are assembly type buildings. So large like theaters, stuff like that, theaters and restaurants. B2 occupancies are long-term care homes, hospitals, stuff like that. And E occupancies are mercantile occupancies. These are stores, but they're more on like the larger size, like Walmart, anything that applies to Part 3 in the building. And these again, they're adult change tables. They're not child ones. So the new requirements for that are under Section 38313. So we have that clear lateral transfer space inside the stall. There's dimensions there. There's new provisions for a 1700 millimeter diameter turn space, which used to be 1500. So that's a change. There's new provisions for emergency lighting within these universal washrooms. There's provisions for that adult change table, and and it has specifications for that. I'm just going to check the chat really quick. Make sure. Yeah, okay. We're just getting some links to things. Okay, so now this is something that Farrell brought up earlier. So for Part 3 applicable buildings, Section 3.8.4 has been added to the code. This is a new subsection, and it's relating to alterations and additions to existing buildings. Accessibility requirements are going to be applied, except as provided in sentence 2. Access described in these articles here shall be provided. So it explains any additions to existing buildings, any major renovations, where the occupancy's changed, and of course, new construction. Oops, I went too far. As I mentioned above, we have those adaptable dwelling units in Part 9, but we also have them as a requirement in Part 3. So that section is 385, and again, this is coming into effect in March 2025. And something to note here, along with those adaptable dwelling unit requirements, if you have a multi-residential building, multi-stories, the first story of that residential building, every dwelling unit on that first story is required to be an adaptable dwelling unit. So that's something to keep in mind for the architects in the room. There's a new section, section 3.9, and it's regarding self-service storage buildings. I've been having so much trouble trying to say that lately. Yeah, so it's a new section that's been added to the code. This section is only applicable to Part 3 buildings that meet the applicable criteria, which we'll go over. Self-service storage warehouses that do not meet this criteria are subject to more requirements under Part 3, and they do not include those Part 9 self-service storage buildings. So the application of this, this section applies to self-storage buildings that are not more than 1 story in building height. They do not contain a basement or a mezzanine. They consist of individual self-service storage units with external access only. So those roll-up type doors that you see that you can access only from, they don't have a common interior corridor, are used only for no purpose other than storage, and except as provided in the sentence, contain no other major occupancies. So that sentence basically says they are allowed to have 1 dwelling unit within these buildings as well. So the change is that you can group these buildings as and consider them as one. So for spatial separation requirements, as well as occupant load, stuff like that. You see there on the right here, there's group 1, group 2. Within group 1, you've got building 1, building 2, and building 3. So all of those can be considered a group or a single building regarding things like occupancy. They have to be, they will be classified as F2. And yeah, so this section is new. It's definitely something that the engineers and architects in the room want to check out. The Part 4 changes. So I just have one slide on the Part 4 changes. There's actually a really good session offered by the Engineers and Geoscientists Association of BC, so EGBC. And Suzanne's going to put that link in the chat there. But essentially, the big changes for Part 4 are low roof guidance close to the ground. So there's new snow drift stuff in there. There's new standards for snow loading requiring where 2 roofs are less than 5 meters in elevation. Roof deck parking and snow loading, solar panels, and relationship to snow wind loading on roof. Their storage racking requirements requires professional engineers, and importance of category of building to be added to the structural drawings. So any structural engineers in the room, you definitely want to check out that website and that link to the session by EGBC. Okay, so we're almost done. So the BC Plumbing Code changes. So one big change is that last year the province adopted the national code, the National Plumbing Code of 2020. And some of the changes within that code are there's new terms, so there's new defined terms, and non-potable water systems, including connections to public systems. There's new provisions for that. Fibro cement, PRT, cellular core, PVC. There's new requirements regarding this type of piping. Bathtubs and showers require automatic compensation valves. There's a lower max hot water temperature for seniors or healthcare facilities. It was 49 degrees Celsius. Now it's 43 straight across. So even those smaller healthcare facilities, you can go to 43 degrees. There's flexible water line standard, a new flexible water line standard. There's provisions for subsurface water sumps requiring water airtight lids, and they've deleted that 2.5-inch pipe reference. And that brings me to the end. So if there's any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. If you come up with something later on, feel free to email us. I'll also send out a summary of everything along with the slides and the links that we posted. And if you have any questions, if you have any follow-up with the province, we'll come back and reach out to you folks. So if you have any questions, feel free. If you don't, I still ended pretty early, which I'm very glad that you all stayed on the line to deal with my technical issues. But yeah, thanks for coming if you don't have any questions. Thanks, Jessica. Sorry for the beginning. I'm glad we figured it out. Yeah, okay. So it doesn't seem like there's any questions. Thanks everyone for coming. I'll send out a follow-up email with some documentations as well as the slides. Hi, Jenna. Oh, Farrell. Where is the data behind the numbers of CO2 levels derived from? So the numbers in the data behind the numbers of the CO2 levels derived from. So those are from the province. They've got, it might be in they have something called the carbon pollution standard. I can send you an email after as well, probably tomorrow. It basically outlines where they get all of the numbers from and the sets and the targets and all of that. So I can reach out and I can include that in the email as well. But it's data basically that they've collected from different case studies that have been performed before introducing the zero carbon step code, which was the carbon pollution standard before. Jana says, so all drawings need to be done by registered architects. That is only for part 3 applicable buildings, only when you're dealing with part 3, as well as the Architects Act has requirements for number of dwelling units. So, and some other factors. So if you have a question about that, definitely reach out to me and yeah, I can get you a better idea. So not for part 9. Was there any mention of R-value changes coming to, say, ceilings and walls? So there is some changes for if you're doing renovations. They've increased some of the changes in those standard charts. Actually, no, they haven't. Only if we're going the prescriptive pathway on the the energy step code, those values have increased. And when I talk about that, the cost of going to the prescriptive versus performance, that is why. So in our area, I think in area 6 or zone 6 of the province, they go up to like R80 in the ceiling. But right now, if you're doing a renovation, that's pretty much standard. Those haven't changed. Hi, Al. Yes, we will send copies of the slides as well. Thanks, Joel.
Hey, thanks, Amanda. One other question,
Thanks.
if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
In the slide, and I know you kind of looked through it on the continuous pipe for passive radon venting.
Yep.
And you showed in the attic where you're going to have to insulate in the area where it's unconditioned. Say that pipe is passing through a garage, sort of, you know, the classic, a garage space, sort of kind of conditioned, but unconditioned, I think, to the coast.
So it would be considered non-conditioned, so you'd have to insulate it. It's similar to when you're passing ducting through your garage. You still have to insulate it.
Gotcha. And is there a prescription on pipe insulation? Like, are they what's
so it just says insulated. I don't know, because you know how some there are prescriptive for ducts, for example. So ducts and pipes are required to meet the standard of whatever the wall is. And you could probably fault that under this. So it would be the similar to what's required for those ducts that pass through that unconditioned space.
Great, thanks. And then is there anything to the number of turns or elbows or anything further?
So the number of turns, there's nothing in there. It's just when you do turns, you have to label it.
Okay.
And maybe I'll jump in too. There is language about reduction of horizontal runs of the radon pipe. I think Amanda actually touched on that.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, that 1.8. Yeah. Hang on, I'm gonna pull up this slide here.
And then your ABS piping now, then once you come out through the slab to all the way up, from what I understood, the PVC there. Yep.
Yep, it's that Schedule 40 that's specified in that standard. So when that standard is specified in the radon requirements in Section 913, we have to apply that. So that that thicker wall PVC Schedule 40, we're going to have to send out some stuff to the suppliers as well, because Schedule 40 is going to be becoming as popular as radon pipe. In our words, it's not radon pipe anymore.
Yeah, and really,
I understand.
I really think the intention behind that too is to allow that that material to have the thickness required if you were to install an active system with a fan. That Schedule 40 is better able to hold that fan and provide that structural support for it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
as well as it doesn't, the pressure doesn't collapse the pipe as well.
Oh, just when you get it figured out, they change it all. So this should be fun.
I know. How do you think when we were in December and we thought this was going to come out the next day, we didn't know when they were going to release the code, and they pulled this out, and everyone in the crowd was like, "Wow!" So we're in the same boat as you.
Well, that's great. This was huge help to sort of understand it and at least know what we're all referencing. So thanks so much for putting this on. Appreciate you working through the technical.
Again, sorry about the mishap at the beginning, but yeah, I'm glad we were able to figure it out.
Right on.
Awesome. Okay, everyone. Yeah. Nope.
I think Jessica has a question here.
Oh. Is it online? Is it on the chat?
I just saw a hand raise up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, it's Jessica.
Awesome. I do that all the time. Yeah. Great. Well, if you guys have any follow-up questions, definitely I'm going to send you the slides and everything and all of those links. So if you have questions, feel free to email me. You'll have my email. And if I can't answer it, we'll for sure reach out to the province. I sit on the Step Code Council, one of the co-chairs, so I kind of got an in with them, talk to them all the time. So yeah, we'll get an answer.
Yeah, and Amanda's really front and center on all this stuff. Really, she's been teaching a course at BCIT over the last year or so on passive house and net zero buildings as well. So yeah, great source of information, Amanda. Just to remind everybody too, we are having an in-person session at the regional district office at Lakeside Wednesday. What is it, 9 till noon? Is what we're doing, Amanda?
We are doing 9 till noon. Yep, it's on the
Yeah.
title page here. I'm still sharing. I'll scroll up, and you can. There's still like 20 seats available. So you can go to the links that were sent out and the posters that are up. However you got on here, you can go to the in-person event as well. So 9 to 12 at our head office in Nelson.
Yeah, and if you're not going to attend, certainly if you want to pass a message on to onto your colleagues who may want to attend in person.
Great. I'm going to get some tea because I've been talking too much, and I got to answer all your phone calls tomorrow. Just kidding. Yeah. So again, if you do need me, though, reach out. And yeah, it's good to see so many people here. Thanks for taking interest.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks. I'm going to end the meeting. Thanks so much.
Okay, take
Bye.
care.